Imagine a river, the lifeblood of an entire civilization, turning to blood in an instant. Imagine the sky, the very source of light, snapping shut and going pitch black for 3 straight days. This isn't a trailer for a new horror movie. These are scenes from an ancient text describing a showdown so massive it would redirect the course of history. But what if the story of the 10 plagues of Egypt is more than just a freak show of frogs and hail? What if it's the story of a spiritual war, a theological takedown aimed squarely at the most powerful gods of the ancient world? The deeper problem. For centuries we've told and retold the story of the 10 plagues. We've seen the Hollywood epics and heard the Sunday sermons. The story is usually framed as a string of bizarre and terrifying disasters God uses to punish a stubborn Pharaoh. But viewing it that way is like using a sledgehammer when you need a scalpel. It completely misses the intricate precision of what's happening. It turns a rich story of liberation into a simple display of brute force. The real story, the one hiding just beneath the surface, is so much more calculated. It's a divine intervention, a direct answer to the desperate cries for freedom from an enslaved people. More than that, it's a direct, point-by-point challenge to the entire religious and political structure of the Egyptian empire. This wasn't random chaos. This was a systematic dismantling of a pantheon, a divine chess match between the God of the enslaved Hebrews and the gods of the mightiest empire on earth. To truly understand the plagues, you first have to understand the gods they were meant to dethrone. The first is salt, water, and life. The showdown begins at the very heart of Egypt, the Nile River. For Egyptians, the Nile wasn't just a body of water. It was the source of all life itself. Its annual flood was the engine of their entire civilization, and naturally it was overseen by powerful gods. Hapi was the god of the flood, the very embodiment of its life-giving power. Khnum was the guardian of the Nile's source, and Osiris, the great god of rebirth, was believed to have the Nile flowing as his very own bloodstream. So when Moses, at God's command, strikes the water and it turns to blood, it isn't just a spectacle. It's a declaration of war. The source of life becomes a river of death. The fish die, the water becomes poison, and the message is unmistakable. The gods you worship are powerless to protect their most vital asset. It's a direct hit on the foundation of Egypt's economy and their deepest spiritual beliefs. The second plague follows immediately, an infestation of frogs. To us this might sound almost silly, but its theological punch was immense. The goddess Hecate, who was depicted with the head of a frog, was the deity of fertility and childbirth. Frogs were her sacred animal. Imagine the national symbol of your country suddenly becoming a repulsive, chaotic plague, swarming your homes and defiling everything. The very thing they revered became a curse, demonstrating that the God of Israel had authority even over life and fertility. The humiliation of power with the third and fourth plagues, the attack becomes more personal. The third plague is a swarm of gnats, or maybe lice, that springs from the dust of the earth. This time Pharaoh's own magicians, who had successfully copied the first 2 signs, are completely defeated. They are forced to admit this is the finger of God. That confession is a huge turning point. It's like the rival team's star players admitting they are totally outmatched. This plague of gnats was a direct shot at Geb, the Egyptian god of the earth. Then come the swarms of flies. But here something crucial changes. For the first time, a line is drawn in the sand. The land of Goshen, where the Israelites live, is completely untouched. The flies torment the Egyptians, but they do not cross the border into Hebrew territory. This isn't a lucky break. It's a theological mic drop. It shows that this God doesn't just have the power to cause chaos, but also the precision to protect and distinguish between peoples. It's a direct challenge to Pharaoh, who was seen as a living God and the sole protector of order. God was proving he could protect his own people, right under the nose of the empire. The collapse of the economy and health. Having attacked their water and their homes, the plagues now target Egypt's economy and its people's health. The fifth plague is a pestilence that decimates their livestock. The cows, horses, donkeys, and camels belonging to the Egyptians drop dead, while once again the Israelite livestock are perfectly fine. This was a crushing economic blow. But cattle were more than just assets. They were sacred. Deities like Hathor, the mother goddess often depicted as a cow, and Apis, the sacred bull, were central to their faith. The death of their livestock was like watching your most revered symbols become worthless overnight. A clear message that these gods couldn't even protect the animals that represented them. Next is the plague of boils, a painful and gruesome skin disease that afflicts both people and animals. This plague was a direct assault on the gods of health and medicine, like Sekhmet, the goddess of healing, and even Imhotep, a brilliant physician who was worshipped as a god. The irony was devastating. Even Pharaoh's magicians, now covered in boils themselves, couldn't stand before Moses. The message couldn't be clearer. The gods you pray to for health have no power here. There's a higher authority, one who truly controls sickness and well-being. The conquest of the heavens, the battle now escalates from the earth to the sky, the domain of Egypt's most supreme gods. The seventh plague is a terrifying hailstorm, mixed with fire, that rains down from above. It pulverizes trees, destroys what's left of the crops, and kills anyone caught outside. This was a direct challenge to Nut, the sky goddess, and Shu, the god of the air. It was a demonstration that the God of Israel controlled the heavens, a realm the Egyptians believed was untouchable territory for their own gods. This is followed by the eighth plague, locusts. Any crops that miraculously survive the hail are now devoured by an unstoppable swarm. This plague was aimed at gods of agriculture and prosperity, like Osiris and Seth, who were meant to ensure a bountiful harvest. By stripping the land completely bare, God demonstrates that he alone has the final say on who eats and who steros. But it's the ninth plague that is perhaps the most profound theological blow before the finale. For 3 days, a thick, paralyzing darkness smothers Egypt. You couldn't just see it. You could feel it. Yet in the homes of the Israelites there was light. This was a direct, undeniable attack on the most powerful, most worshipped god in the entire Egyptian pantheon, Ra, the sun god. Ra was the king of the gods, the creator, the source of light. Pharaoh himself was called the son of Ra. By simply switching off the sun, the God of Israel showed his total supremacy. It was like pulling the main power plug on the entire empire, proving that what the Egyptians revered as the ultimate power was just another part of his creation, and their most powerful god was utterly helpless. The final, devastating blow, all 9 plagues were just setting the stage for the final, most devastating judgment. The 10th plague is the death of the firstborn. In every Egyptian home, from the pharaoh's palace to the prisoner's dungeon, The firstborn son dies. This wasn't just a tragedy. It was the ultimate theological checkmate. Pharaoh wasn't just a king. He was considered a living god, and his heir was the key to this divine legacy. This plague shatters that belief system to its core. It proves Pharaoh isn't a god. He's just a man, completely powerless to save his own son. It was also a final judgment against gods like Isis, the protector of children, and Osiris, the god of life itself. For the Israelites, however, this moment was entirely different. They were given specific instructions. Take a perfect lamb, take it live, and use its blood to mark their doorposts. When the angel of death passed through Egypt, it would pass over any home marked with this sign. This act, the very first Passover, wasn't just a ritual. It was a profound act of faith and obedience. It became the defining moment of their liberation, a symbol of redemption that would shape their identity forever. It cemented their story as a people delivered by God, not through their own strength, but by His power. The story of the plagues and the Passover is an incredibly dense and powerful narrative, with layers of meaning that people are still exploring today. If you enjoy digging deeper into how faith, history, and theology connect, consider subscribing for more content that unpacks these ancient stories and reveals why they still resonate. What are your thoughts on this interpretation of the plagues? Let us know in the comments below. Beyond the story, the liberation of the Israelites had finally come. After that 10th plague, a broken Pharaoh finally tells them to leave. The story of the 10 plagues is so much more than a simple record of ecological disasters. It's a masterfully crafted theological drama. Each plague was a specific targeted lesson, a divine counter-argument to Egypt's entire worldview. It systematically proved that the God of a powerless, enslaved people was stronger than all the gods of the mightiest empire on earth. It makes the claim that God isn't some distant, uninvolved deity, but one who hears the cries of the oppressed and steps directly into human history. The plagues were acts of de-creation, hitting the reset button on a corrupt and unjust order to reveal a deeper truth about who really holds power. Whether you view it as literal history or profound theological literature, the message is the same. Freedom from oppression is at the very heart of God's character. The 10 plagues weren't just about punishing Egypt. They were about teaching all of humanity that no empire, no ruler, and no pantheon of gods can stand against the one God who wills His people to be free.